Are you hoping there's no fires because the fire exits?
I don't know, Devo's pretty hot.
He is pretty hot right now.
There's a few seats left, so you guys want.
Come on, don't be shy. There's lots of seats.
I don't bite.
Come on.
That guac was pretty garlicky, I don't know.
You're going to be coming through my black shirt.
We're all friends. We run together on Saturdays. There's like
There's
four
seats up here.
over here. Come on, Katie.
Sit.
I'm gonna grab a basket real
5.
quick.
Don't be shy. Sophia's here. Don't be shy. If you ran 47, what place would you
3 pair of Speedlands for the next. I'm just joking.
4, 5, 6, 7 places.
Come on, don't be shy.
Come on, come on, come on, come on.
2 more seats, 3 more seats over here.
Here, 3 here. 1, 2, 3. Come on. Let's see. All right. Cool. Cool. How was the run, everyone? Woo! Woo! Great job. Beautiful day. We couldn't ask for better weather. Just a couple of housekeeping items. If you did not get a raffle ticket, please get a raffle ticket. We have fabulous prizes from our vendors to give out. And Dylan, what's the special thing that we're giving away?
We're gonna give
tonight?
away a pair of the GS Tan, named after our local mountain here, of course.
Diablo.
Our product collaboration with Speedland and FreeTrail.
Awesome.
Yes.
Next week is our kicks off our Western States countdown. So we will have a Ultra Hoka Buckle Bash at San Anselmo on next Tuesday. So if you have run 100 mile and you want to show off your buckle, you can even show off your horse buckle.
Thank you. Thank you.
Show up, it's at 6 o'clock at San Anselmo. On the 15th, we will send off David and Max to Western States. And then also it's our Broken Arrow going away party too, so come out for that. And then if you're not going to Western States, if you're really unfortunate not to go, we will have a Western States watch party here all day. We'll still have a run 8 a.m. and then we'll come back and we'll have the show streaming all day. If Chris wants to stay late, he can stay late to watch the finish. And then speaking of Western States, if you missed Ryan's event last week, we still have the flag and we're going to hand that flag off to him when he crosses the finish line. So if you'd like to sign it and wish him well, we'd love to have you sign the flag. Dylan, Liam, you're totally welcome to sign the flag.
Love to.
As well. And then this Saturday, we will be having a special cross-country blowout with Nike, 20% off, select Nike footwear. And Aaron will be here testing out demo. Without further ado, Liam and Dylan.
Awesome. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining. I'm stoked to be here. I'm sure you're stoked to be here. Really amazing to be at San Francisco Running Company on behalf of Speedland and FreeTrail and all the good folks. How was the run, folks? You feeling good? Yeah? It's nice, right? Feel free to come closer at the back as well so we don't have to shout so loud. So a bit of a different way to do it tonight. We're doing a reverse podcast. Normally, you'd be used to hearing this guy asking the questions, and we flipped it, and I'm going to ask some questions, mainly because I'm not as interested as him. And also, we can kind of give you the chance to ask questions as well. So if there's something that you've always wanted to ask him, throw up a hand. Don't feel like you have to wait for the end. Just get involved. We will accommodate you. I'm going to start off, and I think the most pressing subject, or certainly the reason why we're here, is this guy. This is the Speedland GS TAM. Where did it all begin? Tell us about that.
Well, geez, how far back do we go? I think we should go deep into the beginnings because we're here at SFRC, which is really where it all began for me. Moving here to the Bay Area, I think it was 10 years ago now, 2013, I moved here to chase my then girlfriend, who's now my wife, from Aspen, Colorado at the time. I did so very reluctantly. I thought for sure we'd break up in 6 months and I would move back to Aspen. But we fell into this amazing community here at the San Francisco Running Company. And it was some of the best years of my life. not only as an athlete, I got so much better in connecting with this community here, and we just had so many amazing group runs, so many Saturday mornings finishing completely blown out to stumble over to Good Earth or to Shoreline Cafe and get our brunch on. And that's really was the more special part of it, the friendships that came about as part of it. So, being back here tonight, it does feel like, sort of coming back home, coming full circle. And the shoe, where that comes in, I've been in the game for a long time now, done a lot of things. And I don't know, I guess it was about 2.5 years ago, I was really looking to do something new with my career. I'd sort of been doing the traditional athlete sponsorship model for a while, and was just feeling like I needed something else, like I was on the precipice of like the next chapter, but I just didn't know what it was. I got connected with Dave and Kevin, the founders of Speedland at the time, and it felt like the perfect next step for me, because small brand that was trying to do something very new and different in a really high quality, deliberate, intentional way, and specifically for trail. And for everybody who knows me, that's what we do, like FreeTrail is trail, It's great to run on any surface, but we are evangelists of trail running. And so, after a year plus of testing, refining, developing the product, it's here. I mean, we released it now a few months ago, and we've been really, really happy with the response. And it's been amazing for SFRC, where it all began for me, to have them carry it and to sell it to the community.
Tell me about the name.
It's self-explanatory, right? The GS is the inspiration for that comes from Dave and Kevin. You know this, but the homage is to car racing. Both of Dave and Kevin are automobile people. I'm not so much of a car guy, but the GS stands for Grand Sport. And so SL stands for Super Ligera, I think is what it is. And SL PDX, those are the first couple shoes that Speedland made. Very much a more minimal, faster, sort of lower to the ground experience. The GS, we're built for comfort, right? So that's where the GS comes from. TAM, of course, Sacred Mount Tamalpais. And I've done hundreds of laps on that mountain. It's my favorite place to run, potentially, in the entire world, and a place where I've shared many incredible friendships, conversations, hard interval sessions, shitty, terrible days, magical days, and that's what it's all about.
There you go. You said at the kind of start there, you've been in the game for a long time. It's a really long time. Mm-hmm. How do you stay motivated?
It's an interesting time to ask me that question, because I did the muck 50 miler on Saturday. And I had a great time, man. It was a beautiful course, really well designed course, really well organized. And I sort of was running with the eventual winner. I think his name's Kanho Luo, probably pronouncing that incorrectly, Chinese athlete. He's here to run Western States, speaks basically zero English. I, of course, don't speak Mandarin, and so we weren't really able to communicate, but we sort of had sort of a mutual respect and good energy between us. But it was sort of like, man, I just don't have the will to fight. I'm like, do I just not have it anymore? Because the old version of me was just like, do anything possible to compete, to be the best I can, to win. And, the last couple of years have just not been about that for me. And that's not a bad thing whatsoever. It's been a new evolution, and there's been so many amazing, valuable new things. And as we know, life changes, everything evolves. So I don't struggle with motivation to get out the door every day. I do struggle with the motivation to be as focused and committed to the competition side of things as I used to be. It doesn't come nearly as easy anymore.
So what do you do? How do you get fired up?
Well, you get pulled off the wait list into the HardRock 100.
There you go.
I really haven't been fit since before the HardRock 100 in 2021. I've been totally healthy the whole time, which is great, but between starting our business, having a baby, moving back to the Bay, it's just been a lot, plus, I'm getting older now too, that plays into it. But, I still want a couple more where I can buckle down and really swing big. I have to say, I don't have a lot of those big goals anymore though. I've done Western States multiple times. I've had the best possible day I could ask for at HardRock already. I've raced all over the world. I've, had a good career, and I still want to take a couple more big swings. Hopefully I'll be able to get back in good shape for HardRock this year. I'd really like to take another massive swing at UTMB. And after that, I'm happy to still try and train and race and compete at some level, but winning and chasing podiums is becoming less and less important to me.
Right. You mentioned moving back to the Bay, fatherhood, FreeTrail, and being a professional athlete. Talk about balance.
Well, okay, so of those things, FreeTrail, fatherhood, being a pro athlete, there's only one thing I can sacrifice, right? I can't sacrifice FreeTrail. Obviously, I can't sacrifice time with my family.
So glad you said that one.
Yeah. And that's obviously number one. FreeTrail's a distant second to that, and then a distant third is my running career, and that's I think been something that has not always been easy. Sometimes I do feel like you want to grasp onto the glory days and to you sort of start to feel irrelevant, or you see guys that you used to train and race with out there crushing it, and you're like, shit, what am I doing? Why can't I get my life together to compete? So I had a conversation with a guy who's sort of been somewhat of a mentor, and he said, you can't simultaneously be a good dad, a good husband, a good small business owner, and a good pro athlete. And I still try, but the one thing that I've had to sacrifice is my running career. And sometimes it's sad, but most of the times that sadness is counterbalanced, much more to the upside with the joy that I get from the other things.
Love that. There you go. You mentioned HardRock, so let's talk about HardRock. Obviously, you've had an incredible day there, as you said, the best day you could have had. How do you go into a race like HardRock, coming off the wait list, knowing that you've had the best day you could have had? What's the mentality?
Again, yeah, this is just one of those things where change and impermanence is what we always have to embrace, as hard as it is, right? It's I'm running HardRock in the same direction. Before HardRock in 2021, I spent 6 weeks in Mammoth, totally focused, and arrived just so ready. I had spent 10 years trying to get into the race, and it was just that magical confluence of events of just arriving, being totally physically ready for it, and just also totally emotionally ready for it, And then just all the small details around it too, my wife and our business partner Ryan and my family, it was just the perfect experience, right? And those things are fleeting and precious. And so this year the challenge is not to try and, not to expect the same thing, things are always changing, and those magical moments are just that, they're magic, it's just by chance that it happens, and if you're lucky, it happens a couple times in your career. So, for me, it's about going to HardRock, doing it justice. I love the race. I love the spirit of the race. I just recorded a podcast with Dale Garland, the race director, yesterday, and I just really admire what they stand for. And so to be there is an honor. And so, you just go there, you do your best. And this year, I ran a 50 miler last weekend, went well. I'm going to be spending I'll go up to Broken Arrow next weekend, then Western States, and drive directly from Western States to Silverton, and I'll be there for 3 weeks before the race. And I was just chatting with my new friend over here about how I'm going to take the Francois Dain approach and basically just go bananas in the mountains for the first 2 weeks, and then do a micro taper and hope I can cram for the exam.
There you go. Shout out to Avery as well, Avery Collins, fellow Speedland athlete. He's entering for the first time. He's off the never list.
Silverton local.
Yeah, he's going to be acclimated.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Does anybody else have any questions? I mean, I can keep going, but I want to make sure I'm giving you all the chance to ask anything you want to ask, say anything you want to say. Yes.
You said it took 10 years to get into the HardRock?
Yeah.
I'm just going to repeat it so they can hear on the live stream. It took you 10 years to get into HardRock.
I'll just expand on that. Yeah. So, I mean, a show of hands, how many people have been in the HardRock lottery? Just 10, huh? Really? Oh, okay. All right. Well, it's just as hard as getting into Western States. And you don't have the option of a golden ticket to try and race your way in. So you have to continue to qualify over time. There's only 145 slots into the race. And yeah, you have to be patient. This is one thing that I've said a couple of times in various places, and I think I'd like to say it here to just kind of stand up for HardRock a little bit, because I think they get criticized unfairly a lot of times because of their lottery system, in that, you know, it's 145 slots. It's vastly oversubscribed. It's impossible to keep everybody happy. But if you take a long-term approach to the sport, if you keep qualifying, if it's a long-term goal and you stay committed to that long-term goal, you will get in eventually. And that's exactly what happened for me. Got into the sport. I probably entered the lottery for the first time in 2012. Didn't get in. Finally got pulled. I guess it was 2019 I got pulled. And so I must have started in 2010 and got pulled in 2019. And then it got canceled 2 years in a row. So it wasn't until 2021 until I started. And that's what I was talking about, is like, I had waited my whole career for that day. And so it was like, when everything sort of happened in the right way, we had great weather conditions, the course was dry, my friends and family were there, it was just like the best day ever. But the point I'm trying to make is that, you know, you just have to keep trying, you know. If it's a goal, you just keep going until you do it, you know. And that's just the way that it is. But for people who, I think, take swings at the race, you know, they come into the sport, they run for a couple years, they get a couple qualifiers, they miss the lottery 2 or 3 times, and you get jaded, get impatient. You just have to be patient, and you'll get your chance.
There you go. There's your answer. Let's talk about Marin life. You were in the Pacific Northwest for a little while.
Yeah.
You bailed on us.
Yep.
But then you came back.
Yep.
Crawling back.
Okay.
What is it that drew you back?
Oh my God, best place ever, man. So many things. I mean, like I said, we moved here in 2013, just before Western States, actually. I remember we moved here, I ran Me Walk and then Western States in 2013. And yeah, I mean, we just have so many great memories and friendships, many of which were born here at San Francisco Running Company. And my brother lives here, my wife's sister lives here. We have a lot of extended family in the area. The weather's amazing. You know, we're building a business in trail running, and we're better. You know, this is trail heaven.
We have trails.
We have trails. Yeah, I mean, it's also the place where Harmony and I sort of like our relationship really solidified, and just, it feels like home to us, right. You know. And my wife grew up in Portland. When we left here in, I guess it was 2018, it was meant to be kind of a temporary thing. We weren't really sure what we were going to do. We went back to Aspen, where we met and where we had lived for a while, just so that I could train for UTMB that summer. And we figured we'd come back that summer in Colorado turned into a year and a half. And then after that, we figured, hey, let's try Portland for a little bit, where Harmony grew up. And we realized quickly that there's no place like the Bay Area, and especially Marin County. And it's funny, a couple years ago when we were living in Portland, I used to hang out at the Pete's Coffee here in Mill Valley all the time. We used to live on Blythedale. And I'm a Pete's guy, you know. Shout out to Equator, but you know, I'm a dark roast guy. And the woman who works there, who I'd known for a long time, because I used to hang out there, I was like, hey, where have you been? I was like, oh, we moved away. You know, she's like, oh, you know, like I grew up here. I'm thinking about moving away too. I said, don't do it. Don't do it. And so, yeah, we bought we came back in October. We were lucky to buy a place in Marinwood, and we're super grateful to be back. And we're never leaving.
There you go, heard it here first. In the 15 years that you've been racing, what's changed? Like, what's the biggest thing that you can say, dude, it was not like that when I started? It's a long ass time, man.
It is a long ass time. I mean, everything has changed. I mean, the products, it's crazy, you know, like how advanced things are now. I mean, when I first came in, you know, everybody was rocking the like plastic ultimate direction handheld bottles and like these like weird overbuilt waist packs, and now we have these like feather light, almost like t-shirt vests on, and the footwear and apparel is all like so advanced. Shout out Speedland. I think, you know, honestly, what's more remarkable is like what hasn't changed, you know. It's just like one of the things that we try and do with FreeTrail is like kind of be a bridge between, you know, sort of generation I came up in and the next generation, and make sure that like the spirit and values of the sport remain intact. And, you know, to whatever degree I have an insight into the sport, I feel like that's the case, you know. Like I still feel it is as friendly, as welcoming, as grassroots as it was when I ran the Silver Rush 50 miler in 2008, you know. Like it still feels the same to me, you know, even though I was talking again to Dale Garland on my podcast yesterday about the early days of HardRock. There's 18 finishers that first year. Nobody showed up. Of course, there's no like spectators. Now there's 145 runners, so really small field, but the whole town is like packed with people. And I think it's just such a beautiful sport that's like found its place in civilization, and it's speaking to people in the same way it's spoken to all of us in this room. And I think that's a good thing. And, you know, to the extent we can protect and preserve that, that's kind of what we try and focus on. Of course, there's things that have changed. You know, there's more money. There's sort of this new race consolidation thing that's happening. Athletes are like truly professional. There's, you know, things that you can be cynical and nervous about, but I think on the whole, it's been a really positive 15 years for the sport.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I worry about is like, is this a bubble, you know? Like, when does this stop?
Yeah,
You know,
right.
eventually it's gonna calm down. But
Is it?
hasn't. Yeah.
Is it though?
I mean, you look at it now on the brand side of things, right? Like Lululemon is like going huge. Like I know for a fact, I was talking to the Nike trail people at Canyons, one of whom ran the 100 miler. I had a friend who ran for Bowerman Track Club. His name is Andrew Bumbelow. He's a 210 marathoner who's retired now, works for Nike. He paced the guy through the night, and I saw him at the finish line. And my friend Andrew, who's a lifelong athlete, he had the twinkle in his eye. He came up, he was like, I get it now. You know? So, but Nike's in the game, Lulu's in the game, Adidas is obviously going huge, Brooks, Saucony, all the big brands are in. Zegna, like the crazy fashion brand, just bought Normal. And then, yeah, you have...
Norda, yeah.
But then you have, you know, cool startup brands like Speedland and Normal, and it's just a super exciting time. And I think the sport exists at a unique place where, the outdoor brands like Salomon and North Face and Arc'teryx, et cetera, want to play in the sport. But then you get the big performance brands also. There's no other sport like that.
Right.
And then you get the fashion brands and the yoga brands. And we talked to Viore, like they want to get into the sport too. And it's just like, who doesn't want to get into the sport? But also, this feels unsustainable, right? They can't be selling enough of that product.
Right. Well, I don't know. I feel like as a barrier to entry, it's like one of the lowest sports, right?
Right.
I ran with someone on Monday and they were like, oh, I've never trail run before, but I like road bike. It's way cheaper. I was like, yeah, it really is. Like, that's all you need on your feet.
Yeah.
Like, it's really rad. And you think how many people have dabbled in road 5Ks, park runs, that have never trail run.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of people to like get that twinkle,
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you think there's sort of some trade-off between like race consolidation and having more money in the sport to support people being pro at it, but also that sort of changing like the community vibe and aspect of these types of races?
I'm really glad you asked that question because it's something I think about too. And I think there is reason to be concerned about the consolidation that's occurring. But I would say that what Ironman was able to do in triathlon, they will absolutely not be able to do in trail running. But what do they have, like 6-7 races in the US right now? There's I think before the pandemic, there's like 2,000 races in the US. There's always going to be room for the Headlands 50K, for the Muck 50 miler, for the Gorge Waterfalls race, which we own up in Oregon. But, there obviously are profit motives attached to, and it's a competitive landscape. At the end of the day, you need people to sign up for your race. What UTMB has is the massive carrot of UTMB Mont Blanc, which in my mind is the coolest sporting event in the world, just in terms of everything about it, the spectacle, the fact that it's a full week long, that there's multiple world-class races. CCC, OCC, UTMB are the 3 most competitive races of the year, pretty much, and they happen within the span of like 48 hours. It's a really cool thing. Will they leverage that massive attraction that we all want to do in malicious ways that might negatively impact races like mine or races like, Muck 50 miler, which I did last weekend? Maybe, but also I think there's always going to be room for the grassroots events. So I think that's how I think about it now. But I think people are right to be nervous about it. And I don't think it started particularly well. So that's my diplomatic way of.
It's a great question. Yeah. Can we talk about fatherhood?
Yeah.
How has fatherhood changed how you approach life in general, but of course as an athlete?
One of the things we've tried to do with our son, who's approaching 10 months old, his name is Rhodes.
Can we just stop there?
Yeah.
Why not trails? Sorry.
You're not the first person to make that joke.
I'm sure. I never said I was original.
Yeah, well, one of the things we've tried to do is not change a lot. We really wanted to make our son, part of the family and have our lives continue in a way that brought us joy, feeling that would make sure that he grows up in a happy household. Obviously, it's changed priorities in a big way. I think maybe part of the reason why I don't feel that need to fight, in races anymore, is that I don't know, I just feel a little bit more mature and settled, and simultaneously a sense of urgency to figure our stuff out with FreeTrail and like make sure that I, I'm doing the right things. So I think it's focused me a lot more. I have to be a lot more efficient with the time and energy that I have. And then, just like really trying to enjoy every moment of it. I think we were talking about this before we started, of just how quickly it feels like it goes. He's only 10 months old and it feels like it's been, 2 months. And he's crawling around now. He's like starting to like put together words, it feels like, and it's like, slow down, dude, slow down. But man, it's a lot of joy. I think also it's made me feel a lot more like human, like you start to feel generations on both sides of you,
right.
Like that you're attached to a much longer chain of, family and
right.
ancestors and human evolution. It's one of the things that trips me out the most about it. But yeah, man, we're figuring it out. It's been a lot of fun.
This question came in on Instagram. It was my favorite one, and I said that if one struck me, I would ask it. This came from Sam Hill. He said, if there was one race that you had to choose to do for the rest of your life, what would it be and why?
HardRock. Yeah. Notwithstanding what I just said about UTMB, HardRock, I think is it's an incredible course. It's an incredible vibe around the event, and I've had some of the best memories, best days, best years of my life devoted just towards Western States. I feel privileged to sit on the board at that event now. Frankly, that race is so hard, Western States, that like I dropped out in 2015 and I'm like still scared to go back. And I just love my role now, like working on the board and with those incredible people who I admire so much, and having the privilege to host the broadcast. I don't feel the pull that like I really want to really race again there. HardRock, I do feel that. And UTMB, like I said earlier, I'd really like to take a big swing at that. But yeah, those two really are the ones that stick out for me.
Love that. Anyone? Yes.
Kind of similar vein, but what's a race that's on your like bucket list that you haven't done? Maybe not UTMB, well, have you done it? I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, what's like a race that you want to do you haven't done yet?
I have done UTMB. I did it in 2017, and it was like the one that got away from me. I finished 7th, but I felt like I just screwed it up right at the end when it mattered most. So that's why I really desperately want to go back. I have a theme in my career of like redemption tours. In fact, the Muck 50 miler last weekend, you'll remember this, in 2015, remember I had a heat stroke in the Muck 25K. I had to get rushed to the hospital, nearly died. So I got that redemption done this past weekend.
There really was only one right answer to this question. Yeah. And if you know me, you know what the right answer is. Gypsy.
Yeah, Gypsy.
Come on.
That is a good point. I've never done the Dipsy, and I'd actually really love to do the Dipsy. Yeah. I'd really love to do the Dipsy.
Had to feed it to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said earlier, there aren't that many races that I haven't done and that I still really want to do. The Dipsy would be one. I think, a lot of those obscure ones. The quad Dipsy, the quad. 24-time finisher. You savage. Yeah, I don't know. The one thing is, like, I definitely do want to remain active in the sport no matter what, even when, competing is less of a priority. I would love to be running the Dipsy when I'm 60 and chasing black shirts and stuff, yeah. Go ahead.
We didn't get to meet, but my name is Jack, and I'm like very new to trail running, only a year. I've been running for like 10 years, but road racing. Not really good at it, and then I just like everyone's like, you should try trail running. I'm like, no. And a year ago, did my first ultra and didn't train, just did it. And I'm kind of like that now, but I finally am training. But on your podcast, so you talked about you talked about like DNFing and its ecology and like kind of like like trying to like move past it. But I was like hoping for more like detail. But you know, that's not the question. But my question is like for myself, like I'm only a year into trail running, and I'm like I don't know how this has happened. I just you know, I think like you know you're an elite runner. Like at least I see it that way. But what I like about trail running is that the elite runners don't act elite, which is amazing because I feel like I'm like who am I, right? But I can just message people, and that's how I got into trail running, just messaging these elite runners, and they would respond. Including you responded to something I commented the other day. Anyways, the point is that as a new runner, I'm like I was like 50k, cool. Like this is not easy, but it's easy compared to like most things that in life that I've done. And then I you know entered Lake Sonoma 50, just like I'm not gonna get chosen, and then I got chosen. And of course I DNF'd at the 50k mark, and I cried so many times by myself walking back up the freaking hills, you know, and then just like the last person that was allowed to like turn at the turnaround point, and just like crying and like being like, you know what, I don't want to hurt myself though, right? And that's what you said in the you know, with Western States when you and Keely had moments and just like didn't want to push further than that. I did the Golden Gate Classic 100K. I don't know why I signed up for that, and I DNF'd at the 50K mark and said the same thing. But it's like it still lives with me. And you just said it. You said like a redemption tour. So I'm hoping to go back to Lake Sonoma. Only my second year of trail running, and I signed up again for the Golden Gate Classic. So and like I know I'm getting better because I can tell by my own like Strava, right? My own history. But like it's kind of like a question of like it's like you're telling yourself. If you could tell your first year self as a trail runner, because I'm literally my first year, it's like you're telling me. It's like telling yourself. What advice would you give yourself, but me? In terms of like, because I'm really ambitious, but like, I mean, I still love it. Because everyone's like, are you sure you're gonna like sign up again? I'm like, why not? Like, you like I don't quit things. But I've had to quit these races. Like DNF, like I was like, I'll never DNF a race. I don't know why I thought that, ego. And then you're like, but then it was the first time in my life where I'm like, just give up. And it's okay. Like this is a one time to say that, and the people who give up around you, you feel good about it. But like hearing, knowing, like even like Sonoma, all these like elite people are dropping out. I'm like, why did you drop out? But I'm like, there's no one, right? This is a long-winded question. But what would you tell me?
About dropping out.
In terms of like that, like how did you get over? Because I'm not over it. Like I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe I did that. But
so it sounds like two questions. It sounds like first question is, what would you tell first year trail runner yourself? What advice would you give? The second one is, how do you handle DNFs? Did I get that?
Yes.
Awesome.
So I also had the same mentality of like, I will never drop out. I started running ultras in 2008, and it was the 2015 Western States 100 where I dropped out for the first time. So I was like a full 7 years in. I'd probably run, 40 ultras at that point, and I was convinced I just don't drop out. Like that's for other people. And at that race, of course, Western States is the goal that I had that year. It was the only thing I cared about, and I just didn't have it for whatever reason. I started walking mile 35. Took me several hours to finally arrive at Michigan Bluff, sat in a chair for 2 hours, like, I don't think I can do this, and really like had to swallow the DNF for the first time. I think, I've been asking people on my podcast recently the whole like, what makes you you question. And if I think about it myself, it's like, I'm fucking good at suffering. Like I am really good at just going, But I had my second DNF at the end of last year when I was in Japan, admittedly showing up to a race I had no business showing up to. We went over there to work on some product with one of our partners, and there was a 70K race, and I was completely unfit, but it was like, that's 70K, And again, like right now I just didn't feel that urge to like fight and prove it and do it, And I think quitting is a weird thing. It's a weird balance because it's simultaneously mature and like you're accepting a difficult situation and not like forcing it, right? Because if you make a habit of forcing it, you end up like being an impatient, stubborn asshole, which I can be. But if you make the habit of quitting, you're also reinforcing something that you don't want, right? So it's a difficult balance, you know, and I don't pretend to feel like I have the answer as to when the right time to drop out of a race is, but it does happen to everybody, you know. Now, there's other examples too, like when I was coming up, like for example, Jeff Browning had never dropped out of a race, a guy who I deeply, deeply admired. Mike Foote, same thing, a guy who I just had on my show. And I always like viewed myself in that category of just like, no, I'm good at suffering, I can finish. And then you don't, and it's just like, whatever, doesn't matter, do it again. It's like the HardRock thing that I said is like, if you care about it, you just keep doing it, you know? Then when you succeed, it's even better. And then the challenge is just to like, you know, hold yourself accountable to having the right justification, right? If it is just simply like, I'm shirking something I can otherwise get through, it's probably not the right excuse. But if you know deep down, it's just like, this isn't productive, I don't want it. It doesn't serve my goals. There's no shame in it either. I don't know if that was helpful at all.
No, it is. And to hear from
Yeah.
like, again, like, I can ask other runners beside me,
Yeah.
and it matters. But to hear like from someone like you, who you know, we're listening to you on the podcast, or we're seeing you run, and you know, it means a lot. And that's why I ask it, because it's like it makes me as a first year runner, like I always tell people I'm never going to be better than I am now, but actually that's how most runners start, right? But it's like, I have to ask it and I have to continue asking it, because when you're in it, you know, and we were going through the same suffering, and I'm exactly like that. Like I'm like, I don't quit things. I can keep suffering. I can keep walking for hours and hours, but like for what, right?
Right.
And it's like, but I'm still like, I'm not a quitter, but it's the one sport that it's like, it's welcome to do that.
Yeah.
But it's like, it just hurts your ego, and it's, I don't know, it's psychological too.
What I would say is that, okay, so a couple years ago, we made a video about a race I did on Reunion Island, the Grand Raid, an insanely hard 100-mile race. Again, I showed up like not super fit at like the hardest race in the world, and didn't go well. And I did slog through it. It was really the one vision quest I've had in my career where I was like, okay, I'm getting to the finish line, you know, like this is not going well, but I'm gonna get there. And I'm really glad that I did, you know, see that one through. But I don't think it was necessarily like the right thing to do or the healthy thing to do. It was more just like, man, it took a lot of time out of my life to fly all the way down here. I'm away from my family, like, I gotta just finish this thing, you know? So, I don't know. It's a difficult balance.
Probably got time for like one or two more.
Okay. The trail running community around here is still obviously super strong. Like we're getting tons of people coming out every Saturday for the Saturday runs here, and it's fantastic. Like a lot of people, you know, it's probably the best part of their week. But I also feel like just sort of talking to folks, like there's been a few generations that have sort of been doing this, and I'd love to just hear you talk a little bit about like your time when you were here in your 20s, and like what that Saturday run meant to you and what it was like. If there's any sort of, I don't know, fun memories or anything, because it seems like it's the same, and I'm sure there's some continuity in terms of like what it represents for people, but I'm sure it's also very, very different. So.
Thank you for asking that too, because it is a nostalgic thing for us. Yeah, I mean, we moved here in 2013, and it was like within the first month that SFRC had opened. And like I said, I was a reluctant transplant. I was like, come on, this is like a big city. I'm from Aspen, like I live in the mountains, right? Like, come on, this is not me. And it was this place and this community that was like, it was home for us. And yeah, so like, you know, this is when Brett and Larissa owned the shop, and they were obviously really dear friends, and they had just had their first daughter, Tamsin, at the time too. And then like guys like Matt Lay and Galen Burrell and Alex Varner, Jorge Maravilla. And then, like we freaking got the most out of each other. Our friend who still lives here, Mario Fraioli, who was working at Competitor at the time, wrote an article about us in Competitor. It was Bros on a Mountain, which was I think something I posted on like Facebook when we were using Facebook at the time. Bros on a Mountain. And it was an homage to our Wednesday morning summits of Mount Tam. And then, like our good friend who still lives here and I think still comes to the group runs occasionally, Fernando. Man, like he's a brother to me, and we like kicked the ever living shit out of each other and got so fit. We were so committed, and coming to the group run every Saturday, it was just like the peak. It was the best. It was the best. And that was like the thing that we really missed, and one of the reasons why we came back, and now it's up to me to sort of get regular with my attendance again. But it was a great generation, and I think Ted and McKay and the team have admirably sort of taken what that was created then and ushered it into a new generation. And from what I've heard, the group runs are still just as fun. And I recall when I was in like peak training mode, I would show up at 7 and I would do an hour of intervals, finish at the shop at 8, and then do the group run and just try and hang on to the train at the front and just finish and just be blown, completely shredded. But it was like, it was the best years of my athletic career.
Cool.
Yeah.
One more.
I just want to know, because it sounds like you moved here in 2013, so you had been running pretty competitively before that. You had mentioned getting the twinkle in your eye, but I'm kind of curious, when did you get the competitive twinkle? When did you realize that you were really quite good at this? And what do you attribute it to?
I've always been a competitor. I've always been an athlete, always. Like, that's just who I am. And that's kind of one of the tensions I feel now, too. As you kind of get close to retirement or whatever.
It's the vets category, man.
Yeah, exactly. So I did my first marathon in Breckenridge, Colorado, and it was a trail marathon. And it was a time in my life when I had just finished, I played lacrosse in college. I had just finished my lacrosse career, living in Aspen, partying so much, and just like missed just the daily grind of going to practice and stuff. And so I signed up for this marathon on 2 weeks' notice, and it happened to be the day there was a football game. The Broncos were playing at Mile High Stadium that afternoon. So I ran the marathon in the morning and then drove straight down to Denver and just partied with my friends, tailgated, went to the Broncos game, etc. That's like the life I was living at the time. But I finished I think it was 5th or 6th. And I was like, top of the world, like nothing could stop me type of thing. Like, I can't believe I just did that. And I've been hooked ever since, And I ran a couple road marathons, but for me, it was always the mountains. It was always the trails. I was living in Aspen, like I said. And so I think that's one of the things that comes across with what we do with FreeTrail is like, we're trail running, because that's really like what I care about. And it is what sort of put that twinkle in my eye at a time when I needed it, because I was like really missing sport and the discipline and the camaraderie and the friendships and the community and the health, of just being fit. And I found it in the trail community, and it's been, the center of my life ever since. Yeah.
Still here every time.
Still here, yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome back anytime.
Yeah.
So one more. Go on, Ted. Hit me with
So
it.
2 weeks you're going to be spending some quality time on the Auburn track.
Yep.
Describe your that marathon of talking. Like, how you set yourself up for that?
Well,
And what
Pete's.
shirt are you gonna wear?
what shirt am I going to wear? Well, thank goodness for ultralive.net. It gives us plenty of material to keep us entertained. What Ted is referencing, of course, is the Western States 100 broadcast, which I have the privilege to host, at least for like the first 20 hours with Corinne Malcolm. It's funny, Ted, like when we did that in 2021 for the first time, there was no rehearsal. It was like it was like what I described with HardRock, where it was just like the perfect, most seamless, like everything just clicked, you know? And I feel like I had been waiting my whole life for that opportunity. And just like, I can sit here for 20 hours and just like spew encyclopedic knowledge and passion for the sport and knowledge about the characters and knowledge about the race and like take all my 13 years of experience at the time and like just funnel it straight into this thing. And it was a huge success and was like truly one of the greatest days of my career, like just sitting there on the track, enjoying it. Doing the finish line interviews, Jim Walmsley does a three-peat, Beth Pascal. It's like, I grew up listening to sports radio and watching ESPN. It's just like, this is what I was made to do. Like, I love this so much. And so, yeah, we get to do it again. So we do the broadcast at Broken Arrow next weekend, and then I'll make a point to have like 3 solid, like silent, quiet days. And then we launch in. Yeah, so tune in. If you're gonna be here at SFRC, you gotta watch the broadcast.
Okay, last thing, some quick fire questions.
Okay.
You have to answer them immediately.
Okay.
Coastal single track or Skyline Ridges? Immediately, man, quick fire.
I mean, I have to say coastal single track because you can do it 12 months of the year, you know?
Okay, steep vert or full send descent?
Steep vert.
Poles or hands on thighs?
Poles.
Dipsy or Tam Hill climb?
Tam Hill climb.
UTMB or Western States?
Western States.
HardRock or Western States?
Put me in a tough spot. To run HardRock for the full experience.
He doesn't get this game.
Being Western States.
HardRock or UTMB?
HardRock.
Last one. PDX or GS Tams?
Damn.
Yeah, buddy. Well, listen. Yeah, available at SFRC.
Pick up a pair today, yes.
Huge thank you to everyone for joining us. Thank you to everyone that joined on the live stream.
yeah.
Thank you to Dylan.
We have a new one here.
We do. We do have this is the GS PGH or the GS Pisgah, the latest collab with Cam Haynes. You can find out all about this bad boy on the Speedland website. Pretty special, pretty striking. Thank you, San Francisco Running Company. Thank you, Speedland. Thank you, Dylan. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Do you want me to pick it?
So we're gonna do raffles real quick.
Just check my tickets. I'm joking.